What happens when you face an NHL team that's on the top of their game, that kills every single penalty and scores on almost every power play they're given? Well, the answer is pretty simple. You lose. And that's exactly what happened to the Dallas Stars and their fan base in their recent series against the Edmonton Oilers, eliminating them from the Stanley Cup playoffs in the Western Conference Finals yet again. And for a Dallas Stars team that showed so much potential and whose ceiling was higher than almost every team in the NHL, it's pretty devastating to see not only some of their veteran players, but some of their fans go through this same process yet again. Well, if you're a fan of the Dallas Stars, you might be wondering, how did we lose to this team and what happened to this roster in this series? Well, today I'm going to give you a deep dive into the, upsetting series of the Dallas Stars, why they lost against the Edmonton Oilers, and what you can expect as a fan moving forward for this organization and the players within it. So if you guys have been liking the content lately and you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do that now for more stuff like this, and let's get right into this one. Leading to the finals, I felt like the Dallas Stars were a clear favorite for not only me, but for many people out there. If you just take a look at this roster, their makeup is one that is similar to many Stanley Cup champions of the past. They have a deep forward group, a strong defensive unit, and a goalie who's playing some of his best hockey of his entire career. The Stars were able to use this depth and the scoring that they got within it throughout the entire season to not only climb back in games that they probably shouldn't win, but to also blow out teams in a ton of different scenarios. So what happened in the playoffs and where did all of this depth scoring go? Well, if you take a look at some of the competition that the Stars had to play throughout this playoffs, it was pretty clear that they weren't going to have an easy road. Starting out as a 1 seed, it should have been an easier team for Dallas in round 1, but with the way that Vegas played throughout the season, they end up as a wild card 2, and it almost felt like the Stars getting that top seed was more of a punishment than it was a reward. Now, we all know the story of Vegas. They have a very deep roster. They were the Stanley Cup champions last year, and playing them in the first round would be no easy task for any team. But somehow, after going down 2-0 against the Knights, the Dallas Stars managed to pull out of that series in 7, but not without a few scars and bruises. Anytime you play a serious first round like the one the Stars did against Vegas, you're going to have a quick turnaround to play the next team in your way. And again, the Stars are not greeted with an easy task in this round either, as the next team waiting for them is the Colorado Avalanche. Now, when it comes to the Avalanche, they're also a very tough team to play against. Not only do they have a candidate for the MVP award, but they have the best defenseman in the world and a few other players who are above what most people would have expected this season. Mikko Rantanen is a 100-point scorer. Valeri Nichushkin was supposed to be in this series. Thankfully, he didn't join in, but there's other players on this roster that will wear you down the way that Dallas probably didn't anticipate. And regardless of Dallas winning this series or not, you are now playing both of the previous Stanley Cup champions, and that's no easy road to get to the Western Conference Finals. Now, fast forward to the Western Conference Finals, and you could see that Dallas was the clear favorite in this one. But if you just took a look at this series in general, you could see that Dallas was very worn down, and some of their star players just weren't producing the way that they had been in previous series. As well as you're seeing players like Joe Pavelski start to show his age, Matt Duchene start to slow down, as well as a few other of the players that were key pieces to the Stars getting to this point. Now, let's just start with a few of the reasons why I think Dallas lost this series. The first reason I feel like Dallas lost this series was because of special teams, and I'm going to rattle off a few statistics here for you guys just to kind of emphasize what I mean by this point. Easily the biggest story of the playoffs, in my opinion, is that Edmonton has dominated with their highly successful power play and penalty kill. Right now, they're sporting a power play of 37.3% and a penalty kill of 93.9%. In this series against Dallas, the Edmonton Oilers had a 100% penalty kill success rate. And if you're a team on the opposing side, those are going to be some tough numbers to beat, even if you're fantastic in the 5v5 section of the game. Now, if you flip over to the other side, the Stars weren't helping themselves out with their dreadful penalty kills either. In the playoffs, Dallas had a 20% success rate on the power play, which isn't terrible, but it's still almost half of what Edmonton was sporting throughout the playoffs. And if you flip over to the other side, they had a terrible penalty kill as well, 67.7%, which is nearly 30% less than the Edmonton Oilers. So their power play was 9th best in the postseason, and their penalty kill finished at the 11th best in the postseason as well, which just isn't something you can overcome as a hockey club in the postseason. Now, the Stars were able to kill off all 6 power plays they gave in games 1 through 4, but in games 5 and 6, they became very undisciplined, having about the same amount of penalties, with 4 of them being scored on by Edmonton. So Edmonton scored at an 80% success rate just in games 5 and 6, and were 100% in game 6. And that's not something that Dallas could even overcome if they tried. So the first big reason for the Stars losing this series was their inability to stay out of the box and prevent the Edmonton Oilers from exploiting their penalty kill and scoring on the power play, even though they were very successful in their 5v5 play. Outside of the special teams numbers and their play in general, there are other reasons why the Stars weren't able to come through in this series. And the next one is the absence of some of their star players and key scorers from the regular season. Now, if you take a look at the Dallas Stars scoring throughout the regular season, they had a very even distribution between some of their star players and top 6 forwards. Over the course of the regular season, the Stars had 9 players with over 50 points, and in the postseason, only 5 of those 9 players broke double digits. For all the criticism they get, Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin both had some great postseason runs this year, with Jamie Benn having 15 points and Tyler Seguin having 13. I think the problem for Dallas this year was more about some of the other players like Joe Pavelski at points, Matt Duchene, and Mason Marchment. Those are the guys you needed to continue scoring in the postseason, and even though they did it all regular season long, they kind of just disappeared at certain points in the playoffs, which I feel like is a big problem for a team who relied on depth scoring for their entire regular season run. Unfortunately, this means that the veterans over 1,000 games like Joe Pavelski, Jamie Benn, and Matt Duchene did not earn their first Stanley Cup, and potentially it looks like Joe Pavelski will retire after this season, so you're losing one of the players who has been a crucial piece to your offense over the past few seasons. But this is what happens when you get to these big stages. You need your stars to perform, and with guys like Jason Robertson, Wyatt Johnston stepping up, you needed to give them more of that confidence that they needed in the playoffs, but with the way that Dallas played, it just wasn't really geared towards that, which is why when their depth scoring dried up, this team sort of dried up in the goals department as well. And the last reason that I have here, we kind of touched on it earlier, was their road to the finals. And I don't think this is talked about enough because Dallas really was given a short stick when it comes to their competition, facing Vegas in the first round, Colorado in the second round, and then Edmonton in the third round. Those are 3 of the best teams in the Western Conference. And as a 1 seed, it just feels like they were given a unfortunate path to get to where they were today. And I actually want to give them a lot of credit because beating 2 of the previous Stanley Cup champions is no easy task. So when you get to that Edmonton series and you have a few players who are inexperienced, it kind of feels like they just ran out of gas, and that's why they ended up losing. I feel like, unfortunately for Dallas, this was a huge window for them, not only last season but this season as well. And as they continue to go on from season to season, they're going to lose a lot of that veteran leadership that could be holding this entire team together, sort of like a glue, that like veteran presence that keeps the young guys going and allows for them to have those big time nights the way that Wyatt Johnston did and Jason Robertson. Well, what's next and where do the Dallas Stars go from here? Well, just to start off, I think that this team is the best at drafting and developing players, so I think they're going to be fine for many more years. But let's just start with their pieces right now. Jason Robertson continues to excel and is still a top forward in this league. You have Miro Heiskanen, one of the best defensemen in the NHL, and in my opinion, one of the most underrated ones. Those 2 are locked down and will continue to grow, so that's a positive sign. You also have a great goalie in Jake Ottinger, who has not only proven that he's a great regular season goalie, but a clutch postseason goalie as well, sporting some of the best numbers of his career so far. During this playoffs, you also have a huge positive in both Thomas Harley and Wyatt Johnston, as they came up big time in the postseason and will continue to emerge as superstars in the NHL. Now, here's where things get tricky. The Stars still have Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin, and I will say they had great postseason, so that's a positive sign for both of them. But Jamie Benn's on the last year of his deal, so either you need to re-sign him to a very friendly veteran deal or move on from that contract. I think the Stars should look to maybe move on from Tyler Seguin. I think his cap hit is too much for the amount of production he's giving them, so I would just shop that around, or maybe see if you could get some assets for Seguin, or just bring him back because he still fits in with this team. I also think that the Stars should look to bring back Matt Duchene. I think he fit in very well with this team this year, slotting in on that second or third line center role. He had over 60 points this year, had a few nice goals in the playoffs, and I think he really enjoys playing for this team. So if you can bring him back on a nice deal, you absolutely should. But with all that being said, I think that this team is set up to be very successful for the future. I am a little bit let down that they lost in the Western Conference Finals again, but I still think it's a great season for this team. I had high expectations for them. They tackled two of the toughest teams in the playoffs and just unfortunately fell short again. But I want to know what you guys think about all of this. What do you think the Stars should do in the offseason? Should they try to trade some of these players, or should they run it back with every roster piece they can? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. As always, like this video and subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys in the next one.